Ryan, that's some great information. I was wondering if you could just kind of touch on 1031 exchanges. We have a lot of investors that are buying property here and they're interested in sheltering that money or at least avoiding some capital gains tax by doing a 1031 exchange.
Sure. 1031s are actually becoming a very hot topic again. We get a lot of calls on these emails as well. And, because the market is what it is, a lot of folks with investment properties are trying to sell at the height of the market. And so when you have investment or income producing properties, 1031 is an available option. Additionally, there are some rumors that the 1031 may be going away. So I think people are trying to capitalize on that as well. So of course, the idea of the 1031, which is an IRS code, allows an owner of an income producing property to sell that property. And of course, if they just sold it, nothing else, they would have obviously capital gains taxes. So in order to defer that, you can utilize the concept of 1031, which is you sell the property within certain very specific time frames that are very strict. You have to acquire what's called a replacement property for this property that you sold, which is the relinquished property. And if you do that in compliance with the rules, you do not have any capital gains taxes at that time. It doesn't avoid capital gains taxes, it defers capital gains taxes. So the idea there is when you sell the property, the income producing property, you have 45 days to identify what's called the replacement property, which is the property that you're going to roll the gain into. And then you have 180 days from, and both of these timeframes start from the day of closing of the property you sold. You have 180 days to actually complete the second closing. But again, it can be very complicated. There's specific rules that apply. For example, when you sell the property that is the relinquished property, the funds from that sale cannot go to the seller. If they do, that's called what they call cash boot, and that's taxable. So you have to involve what's called a qualified intermediary or a 1031 exchanger. And that party will then actually escrow those funds for the seller until the replacement property closes. And at the time of the closing of the replacement property, that third party who's holding the funds utilizes those funds for the purchase. They will actually send the funds to the closing agent who closes the replacement property or the purchase. And by doing that, the seller never holds those funds. Since the seller never held the funds, there's no boot and there's no tax. That's the conventional way. There's also reverse exchanges and there's all kinds of stuff. Rules that apply if the property that's sold has a mortgage on it. They have to, the replacement property has to also have a mortgage on it of equal value. All kinds of very nitpicky rules and areas where you can trip up and end up having boot or basically messing up the whole 1031 entirely. So that is why it's very important to utilize the services of an attorney, real estate attorney, as well as a qualified intermediary. We locally use the services of some local qualified intermediaries that have been doing it a long time, that we trust, that we know are going to do it correctly, guide the client correctly as far as holding the funds, and there's a lot of paperwork that goes along with it. But if done correctly, it is a great tool for folks that have investment properties, especially now because they're trying to sell at the height of the market, for deferring those taxes.